Last August, Samsung announced the Galaxy Watch 4, which had an improved sensor, a better display, and also it was running Wear OS. Not to mention, the battery life was actually extraordinarily good. So today we're going to go over if that watch is still worth it in 2022. So this watch was supposed to replace the Galaxy Watch 3 and bring in a lot of new features like Wear OS, which would support Google apps, and also a lot more compatibility with other watch faces and third-party apps. So Samsung really tried to do this, but there was a couple setbacks. For one, the Galaxy Watch 4 still does not have the Google Assistant, and also it does have the Samsung skin over it, so it's definitely not a Google Watch. So when people saw this, even with the improvements like the new sensor, they were angry just because they thought that this might be the Android watch versus the Apple Watch, since before this time the Android watches usually are a lot slower than the Apple Watch, and also they just didn't have the features to compete. So this was supposed to be the one, but it actually turned out to be a little bit more of a complicated story. So for instance, or should I say assistants, instead of having the Google Assistant even on the device, they had Bixby, and Bixby's just cannot compare. But nevertheless, we need to talk about battery display, performance, software, and finally features. So you might be wondering how battery is. Well, I can tell you right here, it's actually pretty good. It survives a day and also a night with always on display on, and still has a little bit left over. I do tend to charge it in the morning though, just because it's important to make sure it doesn't run out of battery, and also if it runs out of battery in the middle of the day, that's not really very convenient. But overall battery life is pretty good. Then of course we've got performance. And performance on this watch has been a little bit of a mixed bag. It has gotten better over updates, but in apps like Google Maps, it hasn't been amazing. It's been pretty jittery, and some of scrolling around the system UI has had that feeling as well. So this might be a performance optimization issue, but it could also be the processor just isn't powerful enough to power this watch, especially with the increased resolution of the display. But that is something for Samsung to note in their Galaxy Watch 5. So next we come to the display, and well, the display is pretty good on this watch. It's a circular Super AMOLED 450 by 450 display, so it's a little bit clearer than the Apple Watch resolution wise. So it's actually a really good display. It's also OLED, of course, so it has some nice features, but we'll get to features a little bit later. But overall, it is a really nice display. It has good colors, it's pretty vivid, and for a watch, I mean, it's a little overkill, but still nice, and of course, they always should be improving their displays. So next we get to software, and this was meant to be the big change. Samsung was officially switching to Wear OS on its latest smartwatches. And everyone was super excited because they thought that something like the Google Assistant would come, Google Apps would now be supported. While part of that was the case, it didn't play out exactly how people thought. Samsung didn't exactly put their words into action, or at least they haven't yet. For instance, the Google Assistant is still not there. Bixby's there if you would like Bixby, but the Google Assistant is not there. So that's one thing people were hoping for. Samsung does say they will be coming out with the Google Assistant on their smartwatches soon. So we might see that in a couple months or very soon, but still, they did not give us that at launch, which is a little bit of a bummer. So outside of Wear OS and more Samsung skin, the optimization is pretty good. As I said in the performance section, there is a couple jitters and stuff like that, but overall performance is pretty good. So I did want to mention on the software front as well, there is the Samsung Galaxy Wearable app, which is actually super convenient. It's fairly easy to set up your watch, and you can control a lot of the watch's settings and features from your phone, which is nice since it has a larger display. So next we've come to features, and there actually are some new features in the smartwatch. For instance, body composition. So this actually allows you to measure your body water, your skeletal muscle, how much body fat you have, and a couple other things like BMI. So this is really useful for a lot of people if you're trying to measure weight loss or stuff like that, since you can see your body fat, or if you're just trying to gain some muscle. So that's really cool, and also they do of course have standard features like the always on display, which the Apple Watch Series 3 does not have, which is around the same price actually right now. So these type of stuff are really cool to see outside of just Wear OS. So to answer the question, is this watch still worth it in 2022? And I would say yes, but you might also want to wait for the Galaxy Watch 5, which will most likely come out in August. And then there's also the rumors, which you should take with a grain of salt, about the Pixel Watch. So you really have to make your choice. Do you need a smartwatch right now? And then there's also the Apple Watch, which is great. It's a little bit more expensive as well, but it is a really good watch. You could also go for the Apple Watch SE, which is about the same price. If you want some good features, it does not measure body composition by default, so do bear that in mind. But they're still great watches, so I would say it is worth it, but you could also wait for some newer watches, and you could also take a look at the Apple Watch.